Hello guys, this is Donald's Movies, and today I'll be giving you the summary of World of Warcraft Chronicle Volume 1. This is the last part of the series, and I will do my best to cover the most important information of the last chapter of the book. So, without further ado, let's get into the lore. In the lands of Pandaria, the Titan Watcher Ra had been silent for thousands of years. His servants, the Mogu, had almost completely forgotten him, and as the curse of flesh gripped over them, constant strife between the Mogu clans erupted. At one point, Lei-Shen, the son of a Mogu warlord that was killed by another clan, sought out Ra. Searching for answers, he eventually encountered him in the Titan Vault. Ra then took Lei-Shen to the Thundering Mountain and told him that the Pantheon was dead, showing him the lingering power of the Titan Aman'Tul. The Titan Watcher was in complete despair and had given up, but Lei-Shen did not share the same view. Out of nowhere, he struck Ra, stole his power and the power of Aman'Tul, whilst imprisoning what was left of the Titan Watcher. On top of just that, he also stole the weapons of the Keepers, one of them being the engine of Nalak-Sha. With the use of it, he managed to shape new living creatures to serve him and even reverse the curse of flesh. Lei-Shen, now filled with incredible power, united the clans and created the Mogu Empire. Feeling as if he was the one that is going to fill the role of the Titans, he enslaved all other races around him, seeing them as weak creatures of flesh. The Pandaren, who were the favorites of the wild gods, ran to the white tiger Xuen, who protected them, but in the end he couldn't stand the might of the Thunder King. Xuen was then chained near the peak of the mountain in Pandaria, while the Pandaren became the slaves to the Mogu. As the empire grew and conquered the lands around them, the Zandalari took an interest, and soon enough they became great allies. At one point, the alliance became so great that Lei-Shen gave the secret to his revival only to the trolls, as he didn't trust his own people. Some years later, the Tol'vir, who were in charge of Uldum, were summoned by the Thunder King. They admired how powerful the empire was of their cousins, but when they learned about the slaves, they were infuriated and stormed out. This meant war, and Lei-Shen, so confident in his power, invited the Zandalari army to see how he will crush those who defy him. When he reached Uldum, a tiny Tol'vir force awaited them and he mocked their numbers, but little did he know, he walked into a trap. The Tol'vir used the Forge of Origination that had the capability to destroy the entire world of Azeroth and calibrated it only for the zone of Uldum. When they activated the weapon, everything was destroyed instantly, and the once lush Uldum now became a barren desert filled with nothing. The Zandalari army, the Mogu, and Lei-Shen died. As the secret to Lei-Shen's revival was lost, both the Zandalari and the Mogu Empire fell, and they never regained their former glory. The Mogu Empire continued, but it was severely weakened, and the Pandaren saw this weakness and started the rebellion. They freed Xuen and allied with the Hosen, Jinyu, Grummels, and the Yongle, and they overthrew the empire and took over the lands of Pandaria. Even though the Pandaren would later battle the trolls, Pandaria would from that point on be free and even sealed off from the rest of the world by Emperor Xiaohao. Meanwhile, in the north, one tribe known as the Dark Trolls split from the rest of their people. They lived in caverns beneath Mount Hyjal, and eventually they found the Well of Eternity. The potent energies increased their intelligence and evolved them, creating a completely new race. It was so influential that they abandoned the troll traditions and their religion, and they started worshipping Elune. It was never really said what Elune is, but we do know that she is somehow bound to the Well of Eternity, and she told the Night Elves about the continent being named Kalimdor, and even taught them a few Titan words, creating the possibility that she might actually be the world's sole Titan or some manifestation of it. While they worshipped Elune, the wild god Cenarius saw great potential in the Kaldrai, who would later teach Malfurion as his first student that would spread druidism to the Night Elven society. The original capital was called Elune Dris, known as the Eye of Elune, and it was built on the shore of the Well of Eternity. When Queen Azshara came to power, this small dark troll group that was sort of evolving grew to an empire that would conquer most of Azeroth. At one point, the empire was so strong that it even dwarfed that of Lei-Shen's. The trolls were their biggest enemy at the time, but they didn't even stand a chance against their arcane powers. Queen Azshara was so loved in the Night Elven society that they renamed the capital to Azshari, and she, fascinated with arcane magic, dedicated herself to exploring the depths of the Well of Eternity. This endeavor, even though it expanded their knowledge, sent torrents of magic through the twisting nether from the world of Azeroth, and finally Sargeras found this mysterious world that he was once told about by the Titans. Sargeras manipulated the Highborn and started the invasion known as the War of the Ancients. Malfurion and the Resistance resorted to destroying the Well of Eternity that Sargeras was preparing to emerge from. He was ripped back into the Twisting Nether, the Legion was defeated, and the Sundering of the world began. 80% of the landmass was shattered in that explosion, and a storm of energies known as the Maelstrom engulfed the Well of Eternity. Queen Azshara, along with her followers, were sucked into this hole, and a new race was created, known as the Naga. Night Elves that survived focused on rebuilding their society, but they were completely shocked when they found a new Well of Eternity created by Illidan's Stormrage. The aspects concerned for a new invasion of the Burning Legion decided to use an enchanted seed to grow a tree over it. This would act as a seal over the new well, and it would also be connected to the Emerald Dream, allowing the Night Elven Druids to easily enter it. However, this was only a part of a problem. The Sundering also rattled and weakened the old god prisons, and soon enough the corruption spread from it to the world of Azeroth. In particular, from Yogg-Saron, Serenite began sprouting rapidly all across the world. Fenrir Steghelm decided to counter it, and he cut 6 branches from Nordrassil, the original World Tree, and traveled to these locations infested with Serenite. In Ashenvale, Crystalsong, Feralas, Duskwood, and Hinterlands, he created the new smaller world trees that acted as conduits, connecting it to the Emerald Dream. Happy with the immense success, he planted the greatest branch in Northrend at the largest Saronite deposit, creating the tree known as Andrasil. This turned out to be a huge mistake, as the tree, once it grew, rooted so deeply that it actually reached into the prison of Yogg-Saron, and he infused it with foul energies, corrupting not just the tree but the land around it. The Druids were forced to destroy the tree, later renaming it Vordrassil, and this seemingly fixed the problem, but unbeknownst to almost anyone at the time, Yogg-Saron also used the trees as gateways into the Emerald Dream, creating a corruption known as the Emerald Nightmare. Meanwhile, in the Night Elven society, the arcane was prohibited because it drew the Burning Legion, yet some of the surviving Highborn still practice it and they couldn't give it up. This forced Malfurion to exile Dathramar Sunstrider and his followers, who then sailed to the Eastern Kingdom and founded a new empire known as Quel'Thalas. Dathomir used a vial of the Well of Eternity that he once stole from Illidan, and from it the Sunwell was created. The High Elven Society grew as they finally settled, however the trolls, who outnumbered them 10 to 1, didn't take kindly to them. With the use of Arcane, they barely managed to repel the troll threat, and fearing that this immense use of magic would draw in the Burning Legion, they were forced to build wards around their kingdom. These wards prevented the detection of the use of magic by the Burning Legion, but it also scared the trolls, who were highly superstitious, so it helped them on both sides. Peace then came to the High Elves for the next few thousand years. South of Quel'Thalas, humanity flourished from the once Chronicle race. Human tribes constantly warred with each other, but one of them, called Arathi, saw this flaw, and with the help of their leader Thoradin, they subdued most of the other tribes and eventually united them. An entire empire was built known as Erator, with the capital of Strom. They also built a great wall to defend from the Amani trolls, and the humans that were still independent flocked to the capital to safety, bolstering the Arathi numbers even more. Humans fought the trolls, but they were never a major threat, and the reason for that is because the Amani were already in a conflict with the High Elves in the north. This was more than just a regular war, as the Zandalari had joined the Amani, and even the Loa themselves marched on the battlefield, forcing the Elves to lose ground rapidly. The High Elves were desperate, and they forged an alliance with the humans in return for the Elves teaching humans magic. Humans agreed to help, and soon enough the Alterac fortress was established as they marched north. Aware of the power of the trolls, they didn't just want to attack them directly, so they devised a plan to use their main army to bait the troll force to the Alterac fortress, while the High Elves would follow from the other side. When the trolls fell into the trap, human and elven sorcerers created one single gigantic spell which completely decimated the troll army. This was the end of the war, and the Amani would never rise to the same power again. The Empire of Erator, even though it flourished, would eventually fall apart and create many independent human nations that would become big powers of their own. On the other side of the Eastern Kingdom, in Uldaman, the surviving mecha gnomes succumbed to the curse of flesh, and they fled. They were very weak and frail, but they still had their intellect, and soon enough they created a new society. Sometime later, the Earthen were also awakened, and they had pretty much the same fate as the gnomes. They traveled away from Uldaman and settled in Dunmorog in the Cow's Mountain, where they built the city of Ironforge. At some point, they also discovered the gnomes and the humans and created an unbreakable alliance. One of the human kingdoms was Delran, which was the hub for all sorcerers in the land. However, a big problem arose as the practice of magic in one place drew in demons to the world of Azeroth, which forced the leaders of Delran to create the Council of Tirisfal. This was a secret order that consisted of the Council and the Guardian, who served as a conductor for the power of the Council as he battled the incoming threats directly. The most notable Guardian was Aegwynn, who fought the avatar of Sargeras himself in Northrend and defeated him. Little did she know at the time though is that Sargeras transferred her spirit into her body, which would later be transferred to her son Medivh. She went into exile and was constantly hunted down by the Council, as she didn't want to return her powers, as it was a custom of the Guardian to do so every century. So Aegwynn hid all the time and would eventually forge Karazhan, but as it was discovered by the Council, she was forced to hide deep beneath the sea near the Tome of Sargeras. As she didn't trust the Council itself, she thought of only one way to transfer her power to a new Guardian, and that was to give birth to one. unbeknownst to her, along with her power, she also transferred the essence of Sargeras, and her son Medivh fell into a coma, and Sargeras now found the perfect instrument to use as a weapon for the next Burning Legion invasion. Alright, and that is all I have for this video. Now do leave your thoughts if you would like to see more of these book summaries in the future, and I am aware that I skipped quite a few stories from the book, but that is only because I plan to cover them in separate videos in the future. If this series helped you, don't forget to like the video and also subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, as it really helps out and keeps all the videos going. And thanks a lot for taking the time out of the day to watch this video, and see you next time.